Hey everyone, this is Lindy from Love Create Celebrate. Welcome back to our channel where we share all of our DIY and home renovation videos. Today I am doing one of my favorite videos of the year, which is my holiday dollar store DIYs. If you haven't seen one of my dollar store DIY videos, basically I take dollar store cheap looking items and make them look like expensive home decor. The holiday one is my favorite just because I love this time of year and everybody is decorating this time of year, so it's really fun to come up with ideas that everybody will want to use. If you have not subscribed to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future DIY and home reno videos. Today I'm doing 6 dollar store DIYs and the video is kind of long, so I'm gonna keep this short. I made 6 things, 3 of them that could be ornaments and 3 that are decorations, and honestly I really love them all. I say that every video, but I really think you guys are gonna like them. There's a bit of a Scandinavian vibe to them this time because I'm gonna do a little bit of a Scandinavian vibe to my home tour, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned. But I can't wait to show you these ones, so let's dive in and get started. My first DIY today involves these velvet fabric sheets. I used them this fall to make velvet pumpkins, which I loved, and I wanted to use them again for one of my Christmas DIYs. I got these candy canes at the dollar store. They're plastic, they don't look too nice, so I want to do something else to them, and my first step was to spray paint them. I'm going to cover them in velvet fabric and spray painting them first so that the red doesn't show through the velvet. To put the velvet on and make it look like a candy cane, I needed to cut the velvet into strips, so I used my rotary cutter to cut it into 1/2-inch strips. I only needed 4, enough for each candy cane, but I ended up doing a few extra anyways just in case. The dollar store also had this fabric in a tan color, so I ended up cutting 1/2-inch strips out of the tan fabric as well. Once everything was cut and prepped, I used my favorite craft glue and got ready to glue the strips onto the candy canes to make new velvet candy canes. I started by placing some glue at the tip of the candy cane and putting the end of each velvet strip on that glue, and once that had set, I wrapped the velvet strips around the candy cane one at a time, adding glue every couple of rounds to make sure that the velvet would stay in place. I did both colors at the same time because if I had done one color first, it would have sat completely under the other color and the balance would have been off in how they looked. I really wanted them to overlap nicely over the edges, and I found that this method worked really well. When I got to the bottom, I just cut them really short, added some glue, and tucked the velvet together nicely so it created a nice smooth finish on both ends. Here's how the candy canes looked when they were done. I absolutely love these. I was so happy with them when they were finished, and so happy I had a little collection of 4. I've only ever seen what I would call tacky candy canes in stores before, so I was pretty happy to make a version that I thought was modern and Scandinavian and actually pretty. My next DIY involves these brass rings, which I picked up from the Dollar Tree. As soon as I saw them, I was like, these are already perfect wreath ornaments. So I knew I had to make something out of them. They have one little spot where the brass comes together, so I just wanted to make sure I would cover that part up when I actually did the DIY. But I pulled out some faux greenery from my stash to make these rings into wreaths. These are faux greenery pieces that I already had on hand, but if you don't have any, you could also just buy a wreath from the dollar store and cut the pine branches off of that. Again, I used some craft glue to put these on, and I just held them in place for a couple seconds while the glue dried. Instead of doing it across the bottom, I decided to put my greenery up the side to kind of make it asymmetrical, and I really love the final look of it. Then the final step was to take one of those velvet ribbons from the previous candy cane project and tie it in a knot above the wreath so I'd be able to hang it. These little wreaths were so easy and they look so good. They're minimal and simple. I love how they look by themselves. I can imagine them as a place setting. They're a little lost in my pine tree, but I did hang one on top of these printables and I loved how it looked at the top of the artwork. And if you're looking for some nice, affordable, printable artwork for Christmas, I will leave a link to these in the description below. For my next DIY, I found these wooden snowflakes at Dollarama. They were a couple of dollars. There's a whole bunch of snowflakes in here, and I decided to make a really cute Scandinavian garland with them. I started by pulling them all out and testing them on my leather cording. I decided to use leather cording because something like jute or string would end up pulling as I was putting all of these through, and I didn't want to glue them on. Instead, I wanted to just weave them through the actual snowflake. So I tested each of the snowflakes, and there were 5 that worked really well for this. Here's a better video of exactly how I put the cording through the snowflakes. Some of them actually had little holes that I could peek the cording through, so I put the leather through, pulled it, made sure that the leather cord was still nice and flat, and then put it back through an adjacent hole. If the snowflake that I was using didn't have holes, I just looked for a gap in the snowflake that was large enough to put the leather through. Then I would put the cord through, make sure that there wasn't a big gap that would allow the snowflake to fall off, and tightened everything. And these snowflakes were actually pretty strong and resilient. I was still pretty gentle when I was tugging the cording, but it held on really nicely. So I strung all of the snowflakes on, leaving 3 inches or so between each snowflake, and it ended up giving me a good 3 to 4 feet of garland when I was done. And this is what the garland looked like when it was done. I love these little snowflakes and how they accent the greenery. I don't have a mantle done yet this year, but this would look gorgeous on the mantle above your stockings or above your fireplace or just in the greenery above your window. It's just a simple touch that adds so much and looks Scandinavian and beautiful. My next holiday DIY involves these snow globes, which I've seen at both Dollarama and Dollar Tree. They're super affordable. I actually bought a whole bunch so that I can do something fun with my kids later on too, but for this I'm using 3 of them. And I found this little pack of wooden goodies at Dollarama that I'm going to use as part of my snow globe decoration. My idea here was to create a little wintry village by adding some trees and adding in these houses from this wooden set. If you can't find these houses, you could also easily cut some little houses out of scrap wood. It would just be harder to get the intricate details of these ones, but I loved how these little houses looked, and I think they will be adorable inside these snow globes. The trees I'm using for this project were an $8 pack that I had from Michael's already. If you don't have something like that, I know that Dollar Tree has some. Here's a photo, and you can easily cut the tops off those. I actually did end up cutting up some of these ones and gluing them down when I cut the bottom off, so you can definitely do that with the Dollar Tree trees as well. I used the craft glue to glue 2 different sized trees down in the background of my snow globe and to glue one of the houses in front of them. Then I added some fake snow, which again I already had in my craft stash, but you could also use cotton balls or something else to look like snow since these aren't real snow globes. The first time I filled the snow globe, I put way too much snow in it and it just completely drowned my little village. So then I removed a bunch and tried again and it looked much better. You honestly only need a couple tablespoons of snow and it looks perfect. I made one snow globe for each of the houses that I had, and here's how the little snow globe village turned out. I think this is adorable. My kids love these, and bonus, they're not breakable, so my kids can pick them up and move them around. I love how they look on the shelf, and I will definitely be using this when I decorate the whole house. For my next DIY, I am using some wooden blocks from this set I got at Dollarama. I also used some blocks from this set in my fall DIYs, so this $3 is stretching pretty far. But what I took out was some triangles and some squares so that I could make these into little house ornaments or decorations. You want to start by clamping down your triangle piece and then drilling a small hole into the top of it. The easiest way to do this is to drill in at an angle and then move your drill vertically and drill down straight. This is going to be to put a little eye hook at the top of the triangle so that I'll be able to hang these ornaments. Once I had all the hooks in that I wanted, I used some wood glue to glue the top and bottom pieces of the house together. Make sure you have a wet rag on hand so you can wipe off any excess glue that comes out because the excess glue will not stain nicely. Once the glue dries, you can sand it down if you need to, if there's any uneven edges, and then stain all of your little houses. I will link the stain here that I used in the description below. And then the last step was to put something through those little eye hooks again to hold your ornaments on the tree. And I used some black leather cording again because I always love the look of this stuff and it's super durable. And here is how the ornaments turned out. I love these little house ornaments. Definitely gonna add some warmth to our tree and some texture. Super affordable and easy to make. You might have noticed I also had left 3 without eye hooks because I thought they might just make little nice decorations in a Christmas vignette on the counter or on the shelf, but I love it as an ornament or as an individual piece. And my final DIY involves these little travel jars that I got from the Dollar Tree. They came in a set of 3 and I got 24 of these guys so that I would be able to make my own advent calendar. This is the most complicated DIY in this group, but it's also my absolute favorite of the group. So I'm saving this for last and showing you how to do this final one. I started with a piece of scrap MDF and it took a little while to figure out what height and width I needed, but I did all that work for you. I ended up making it 10.5 inches wide and 15 inches tall. I wanted to make this advent calendar into a house shape, so I found the middle, drew a line straight up, and then used my square to draw the roof line of the house. Also, just for fun, I used a little scrap piece of wood to make a chimney. You don't have to do this step. It is harder to cut that one little piece out, so you can skip that one if it doesn't work for your house. Once I had all of the measurements drawn out, I did put my little containers back on to make sure that they would fit nicely once I had everything cut. And then I used the table saw to cut the house shape out of the MDF. I was going to use a jigsaw to cut the little chimney out, which is a much better tool for the job, but I couldn't find ours wherever my husband had put it, so I ended up using the table saw to cut the chimney out as well, which just meant I had some gaps on the backside that I did have to fill with putty before I painted the entire house. The next thing I did was draw out a grid to know exactly where to place all of my little containers. I left about 1 inch at the bottom and then put each plastic container 1.5 inches apart. If you're not as precise as I am, you could also eyeball this, but I wanted to be really exact and have everything look perfectly in line. Once I had that grid drawn, I used each of the spots where the lines intersect to pre-drill holes for the containers later on. I used a small drill bit to drill holes in the bottom and the exact center of each of the plastic containers I had so that they would be ready to attach to the board after. And then, as I said, I pre-drilled all of my holes so that I would have the holes finished before the piece was covered in paint and my grid lines were gone. You could also use a strong craft glue to attach all these plastic containers. I just didn't know how long that would last, and since I'm putting all this effort in, I really would love this advent calendar to last for years, so I wanted to drill mine. Then I spray painted the entire piece black with a couple coats of spray paint so that the white lids of the containers would really pop out against it. Then when everything was dry, I reassembled it all, making sure to drill the plastic pieces tightly onto the board so that we'd be able to screw and unscrew the lids. Finally, I used these dollar store stickers to add the dates onto all of the individual circles. To be honest, these stickers did not stay on very well. I actually had to glue some of them down, and I'll probably replace all of them next year because they didn't stick on perfectly, but they worked well for this year. And finally, I topped the little house off with a wreath from the dollar store DIYs I did last year. And here is how the advent calendar turned out. I am in love with this one. We wrote a whole bunch of activities on papers and put them into the slots with some chocolate, so it would be really fun to pull out and do our advent activities. But I think this is an amazing piece, super durable, will last us for years, and only cost a few dollars to make. So happy with how this one turned out. What did you think of those dollar store DIYs? If you liked them, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I love doing these videos. I hope you guys like them too, and I hope you found some inspo for your own holiday decor. Don't forget to hit that bell so you can be notified of more great dollar store DIY videos. Thanks for watching!